you're doing a very good thing, and I appreciate it. There's a reason why Google lists you at the top.
Oh my gosh. There's the soundbite for this episode, everybody.
Yes,
Forget all the good cooperation is key stuff. We're going for Google SEO right here. Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Real Deal Landman Show, the mediocre podcast with no preparation and no legal disclaimers.
Just right out of the gate at 30
Right
seconds into it, you're already hitting us with the mediocre podcast.
That is what we are, proudly.
We own it. We absolutely own it. No, before we hit record on this episode, we were talking about how if you Google the Landman, I mean, we are right in the season 2 of the Landman on Paramount show. Jerris, I got hit not too long ago by somebody that said, you guys, for a Real Deal Landman show about the Landman, Billy Bob Thornton, Paramount Plus show, you guys don't spend a lot of time talking about that. Give me your thoughts on how should I respond whenever I have throngs of people coming and saying, you guys are not spending 1/10 of your show on Billy Bob Thornton and the rest of the team.
Well, the TV show doesn't talk about us. Why would we bother talking about them?
Well, I mean, short answer. Yeah, that's as good as it gets. We are definitely the primary focus of this thing. But if you look at Google, if you type in Landman podcast, or if you type in Paramount Plus Landman Show podcast, I was very surprised that the Real Deal Landman Show was one of the top search results. I don't know. Our marketing team must be working overtime on this. We have dedicated so much advertising money to that. And finally it's paying off.
So yeah, I just did that just now. I looked on Google and the Google AI summary lists us number 1 as Landman podcast. I don't know if you've seen this. I don't know if you've seen this in the social media realms, but there has been some wars over who has the top oil and gas podcasts and top listeners and stuff.
I have been seeing that. Yeah.
And it would be fun or funny to jump in some of those discussions because we know who we are. We know where we stand. And according to Google AI, we're number 1. So,
I mean,
that's it.
I have yet to see AI be wrong about anything yet, is what I want to go on record by saying. You've
never been wrong.
I never have been wrong. Yeah, I have seen a lot of LinkedIn. I don't want to mention anyone by name, but I mean, it is a little contentious if you see some people battling for seeing who has the most followers and the most views and everything. And I mean, we very professionally, I think, stay out of those conversations because we know the just huge number of listeners that we have on a weekly basis. And I don't like to lord that over anybody is kind of my thing.
Yeah.
Well, the frightening thing with social media is it has allowed the wrong group of people to quantify their popularity.
I mean,
this has been going on for thousands of years, but we've never had that little number in the bottom corner that you can then compare to others.
I mean,
also true.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Digital dopamine hits.
That's right. That's exactly right. This is that hit. And so we are right in the mix. We talked about when these episodes are being released. Probably whenever this episode comes out, there's going to be a few episodes coming in. We have seen so much has happened. So many new cast members added. Taylor Sheridan. We didn't even talk about the big news of Taylor Sheridan leaving Paramount. Going to NBC Universal for $1 billion deal. $1 billion deal. You're shaking your head like you didn't know that was a thing.
I didn't know that. I don't crush over Taylor Sheridan or his shows like you do.
The amount of research and background that we do before these shows is pretty staggering. But that came out quite a while ago. He has left. He's going to be making shows for NBC Universal. It's not going to affect, I don't think, the Landman show. So God bless him for starting the thing out and giving us a runway to be able to get this thing off the ground with. But will we follow him? I guess the final thing that I want to say about that is if we are offered, I I don't know. He got the $1 billion deal. We probably won't hit that number, but I mean, I would assume it would be somewhere in that ballpark. But if NBC Universal does do some sort of a show with Taylor and he starts something up, and we want to pivot this thing, we want to get out of the Real Deal Landman podcast game, and we want to get on to something else. I mean, do we make the switch? Do we do we disappoint our, couple 100,000 fans and go someplace else? Like, what do you think?
The reason he's as successful as he is because he's found content that people find interesting. The scary thing nowadays is the megaphone is available to almost anybody, and so you have clutter. His genius is he's been able to produce content reliably now for about a decade that people tune into and want to hear. That's why he's worth his weight in gold and then some. So you don't have to worry necessarily about what your specific message is. Sometimes you have to worry about whether or not you're producing content people want. So pivoting isn't as difficult as it used to be.
Jerris, okay. So from the wing here, we're getting some really good advice. I don't think there's any better time than right now to introduce our guest for the day. You think that's pretty good
with that?
Well,
that would make
please
sense.
Go ahead, because good night. This guy's already throwing out some real, solid pieces of gold here. Let's get this going.
I like a long cold open though. I mean, this way there's mystery and you go for a while.
Hey, we can do 20 more minutes on this. I'm sure. I'm positive we can.
I judge a James Bond film on how long it takes to get to that opening song.
Drew, I have to use a segue though. I like bizarre segues to introduce our guests, and I have one for you.
Ooh.
I know in recent episodes you have expressed your jealousy that you have for me of the awards and things that I collect.
I do.
I have another one that I don't know if you have or not, but this one dates back like 30 years. But Drew, are you an Eagle Scout?
I am not.
Okay.
Am I surrounded here today by 2 Eagle Scouts?
You are.
I am. I think I made it to first class. Is that a rank? Is that a rank?
That's basically if you show up a few weeks, they give you a patch.
That's it, and I did. I showed up a couple of weeks. I did get the patch. So if I am sitting here with 2 esteemed Eagle Scouts, very quickly, what were your projects? That isn't there a big project that you put together to finally earn that badge? So, Jerris, what was yours first?
Great question. So I had just turned 14, and I went back to the elementary school that I attended, and it wasn't like the entire outside of the school, but there were trim aspects, like where the windows were and the eaves under the roof, that needed a paint job.
Gotcha.
And I agreed to take that job on as my project. Other people in my troop did stuff like a coat drive or a blood drive that takes, a couple of hours to plan and a few hours to execute. I was trying to manage 10 boys that were 12 to 15 years old on a paint job of a school in the middle of summer. And I think it brought me to tears once. It was awful. But, the purpose of these projects are to learn some things. And I did learn some things. I learned some things about myself, and I learned some things about what is reasonable to take on how to deal with people and how to manage them a little bit. I would say that the project accomplished its objective. And now you're going to ask Ben what his was, and he'll be like, well, I did a coat drive where people donated blood.
No, you got lucky. You did not step into that. I'm a Catholic, so for my Catholic church, around Easter time, there's the 14 Stations of the Cross that on Good Friday will be a prayer trail. And so most churches have one on the inside, and you'll see them on the walls usually. And then once a year, they'll go to each one of the stations. And so I actually built 14 Stations of the Cross around the landscaping around the church, where we had about a 4 or 5 feet tall mast, basically, with a cross on top. On the bottom, it was the station number and then what was actually happening in that station. So for a number of years, at least until nature reclaimed it, at my church, there would be the outdoor Stations of the Cross, weather permitting. And, it involved managing people, figuring it out, and then just fun escapades. At the base of it, we were going to have a square border of rocks. And I grew up on Long Island by the beach, and So my dad's initial idea was, let's just 4 o'clock in the morning when no one's looking, let's drive down to the beach and steal a whole bunch of rocks. Okay. And that way we can keep the costs down. And so there we are at about 5 o'clock in the morning looking at each other. It's like, we're doing this for a church. We're doing this for an Eagle Scout project. This is just wrong on so many levels. And so I spent the entire Saturday going from landscaping place to landscaping place, begging for free rocks. And it was just, it was a great experience. And, for the record, we did not take rocks from the beach, but no, I come from a wonderful family with wonderfully supportive parents and siblings. And I know what Boy Scouts did for me growing up. It really pushed what I was able to do and who I eventually became. And I now periodically sit on a national scholarship review committee for Eagle Scouts who are going to college. And I see what the program can do for people who did not have that advantage growing up. And so when done right, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Is the program drastically different today than when you were in it? And is that okay, or does it bother you a little bit?
It is drastically different. There's still the core of what was there. I'm one of those people that I try and find a polite way of saying things, but I don't hide from things. Boy Scouts has had a miserable 10 years. COVID didn't do it any favors. This is supposed to be a bunch of people getting together and hiking, camping, etc. And COVID for a year or two really shut that down a lot. And then you read about some of the scandals that happened in the late 20s, and it was a body blow. And I have a 10-year-old. I spent last weekend at a camp out with him for Cub Scouts. My hope is this: there are enough people like you and I, Jerris, who went through this process and saw some redeeming value to it. And I think there's this one last generation of us that if we can reprime the pump and get it started again, that it can be back to what it was. And it can be a wonderful, wonderful thing for people's lives. If this generation doesn't do that, there's going to be no carryover, because my son won't know its value and he won't carry it over to his son. And then I have really no optimism for it. So the good thing is I've seen a lot of people willing to do a lot of work to get it back where it belongs. Will it happen? I don't know.
Yeah. Growing up with it, it was kind of pushed on me to do. Obviously I went quote unquote all the way with it, but, I had a lot of parental figures or leaders or adults or mentors or people who would say, this is so awesome that you're doing it, and it's going to mean so much. And honestly, as a teenager, I just shrugged it off. I was stunned when I was in college at the OU Career Services Center doing interviews with these companies, and just a single line at the bottom of my resume that said I was a member of the National Eagle Scout Association, or just something like that. And I was blown away by how many interviewers saw that, wanted to talk about it, and acknowledged how powerful that was. I would have never believed that anybody really cared that much, but it's true. And when I saw your bio for an event you did earlier this year, and you had that on the last sentence. And when you find, because the program has become what it is, and I'm not saying good or bad, I'm just saying it doesn't have as much participation as it once did. And so when you see like a fellow Eagle Scout, it's kind of cool. I was never in a fraternity, and I'm not saying that scouting is a fraternity, but I feel like that when I find somebody else that hit that rank, I can experience a similar connection to what fellow fraternity members have with each other.
I agree wholeheartedly. About a year ago, the pack that my kid's involved in lost a bunch of adult leaders, and I was the only one left. And, we have 28 kids there, and it got to the point where I couldn't do it anymore. It was too much with everything else. And so one night in a dark parking lot, as we were doing cutouts for Pinewood Derby cars, I had all the parents assembled, and I basically said, look, I can't do this anymore. I need help. And it was a good conversation. It was a conversation from the heart, talking about how we're trying to do this for the kids, but I need help. 3 guys stepped forward. All 3 of them had made Eagle Scout growing up. I'd never met these dudes in my life. All 3 of them stepped up and said, I have an obligation to help. What can I do? And 1 year later, I sat there this weekend at the past camp out, and I was kind of on the fringe of our area. And I looked in, and, they've got an amazing dinner going for the entire pack that they're cooking. They've got everything lined out. Everything is perfect. And there's actually now an organic beating heart to this. And the progress that was made in 1 year was phenomenal. It's It's a program that has tremendous value because one of the things, it's a very all-encompassing program. When you play on a baseball team, you're all coming together doing one thing. When you are in an engineering club, you're coming together doing one thing. I did everything from Boy Scouts, from charity drives to hiking to camping to flying around the country with people, to learning skill sets, to learning how to be respectful, to learning how to stand there in a uniform at 14 years of age and having somebody tell me why they disagree with me, but I realize I've got to behave well and properly. It's something that I hope that we're able to continue to perpetuate in this country, but only if we can do it the way that it was.
Yeah. The biggest benefit that I've been able to enjoy from it recently is that we've been able to keep Drew speechless for well over 5 minutes now, and that has never happened.
Don't think that I haven't been just absolutely biting. I'm biting my tongue on this. It's okay. I'm telling you, I really, a moment of sincerity here. I'm very respectful to what you guys accomplished with that. I look back on the times that I was in Scouts and I absolutely enjoyed it. And it was one of those things, kind of like what you're talking about, of being able to have a group of friends that it's just another just building experience, like being on a sports team or anything else. But you get to have that camaraderie and get such great experiences. We got in a lot of trouble. One of the people in our pack threw a dirt clod and hit Tyler Sullivan in the face, and I think it broke his orbital bone. And that's one of the biggest memories that I have. I put that on a resume, and it does not have the same resounding, like positive, like vibe that you guys have with the whole Eagle Scout things. But helping Tyler recover from an orbital bone fracture at a scout camp in southeastern Oklahoma was a pretty highlight. We learned medical skills. I mean, we learned, we knew exact first aid. I think we got a patch out of the whole thing. I don't know. It was pretty fantastic. But no, I think that's really cool.
Let me throw this out there with an Eagle Scout thing, and then it's going to bring it back to land work. Okay, this is going to be fun because this is where I think we can tie this in a nice, neat little bow. After I had made Eagle Scout, 18 years old, had a little puddle jumper of a car, meaning it was nice and zippy, but it's not. Looking back on it, I had way too much love for this car, and was driving and I entered a street where I was on the main road and I made a left-hand turn onto that street and I cut the corner going way too fast. And a woman in a minivan with someone in the passenger seat and someone in the rear seat were coming down to the stop sign there and nothing happened. She had to stop hard because I was completely just cutting that corner. And about a week or two later, one of the girls in that car, like 15, 16 years old, comes up and says, "Oh, by the way, my mom wanted to give me a message." When I told her who you were in that car, she said, "Oh, he's an Eagle Scout. I would have expected better from him." Yes. I've taken that with me now for 30 plus years. Okay. How you behave matters. And so we're all sitting here talking about landmen, land work, which gets us out to interacting with people that we've never met before. Okay. The number of times, if there's one skill this industry has, it's the ability to walk into a room, know one, sometimes know nothing, and then have hopefully an honest and heartfelt conversation with somebody. And, at the end of the day, the money matters, what you're doing matters, all that stuff matters. But what actually gets the tract of land conveyed or the right conveyed or the lease signed is whether or not a human connection can be made between those two people. And so for me, if there's a benefit to where my childhood left me off, it was that memory. Who you are matters. How you behave matters. It follows you. I don't look at things as wins and losses. That to me is the essential, I think it's the essential takeaway from a lot of this. So here, we brought us back to landmen now.
To kind of piggyback off that a little bit. So I teach the CPL review, and I have in the past taught the portion on ethics. And really the ethics portion inside that CPL review is pretty short. Like there's just a couple of concepts that are touched on. But if you read the AAPL Code of Ethics and you're trying to take the legalese out of it and put it into, okay, what does this mean in everyday speak? That's a huge part of it, is that as a member of the AAPL, you are an ambassador, not only for the industry, but especially for the profession. And people are watching you. And they're going to not only judge the profession based off of your actions, but they're also going to judge and determine how future interactions with people are going to be shaped based on how you handle people. In other words, you have the potential as a landman to ruin it for everybody else.
Yep. And it's very difficult to salvage when you come in on the back end of that. We deal with that all the time. As with most people, we started oil and gas. We're now across 5 different industries. So we're not just in the 5 or 6 most producing states in the nation. We're all lower 48 states. I
Wow.
myself, I think I've worked, I think the last count was 38 of those states. And so you're everywhere. And, if there's one common thread that I've found running through America, and I don't care what your political background is, rural, I don't care. If there's one common thread, it's people remember how they're treated. They know when they're being lied to. They know when they're being treated fairly. And even if we can't come to a deal on this particular set of circumstances that we're talking about now, we're going to swing back around again and again and again because, there's 1.9 billion acres of land in the United States. But when you start subtracting out acreage that is not useful, probably will never be useful, is federal, is already spoken for, go through the entire list, we are all competing for the same acreage again and again and again. And so we are going to keep circling back to these same landowners, and they have long memories.
They really do. And for the good and the bad. I remember I was driving back to the Durango airport, and I just have this memory, and it was somewhat early in the morning because I was mountain time, and I was driving out there, and I saw this number on my phone, and I thought I recognized it, but I wasn't really sure, and went ahead and answered it because I had nothing else to do because I was driving, and I heard a voice, and I immediately recognized who it was, and it was a mineral owner I had dealt with many years before. And he wanted to tell me about an experience that he had with another landman and the company that he was representing, and how unfortunate those conversations went, and wanted to say, like, I want to do a deal on this. I'm not going to deal with them. I have no idea what you're doing right now because I haven't talked to you in years, but is this something that you or your company would be interested in? Because I know you're somebody I can trust and work with.
That's great.
It's evidence of someone who gets it. And one of the problems that we have in this industry, you probably, if you want to extrapolate that forward to country, but one of the problems we have, certainly in the industry, is never in the history of America have more people lived in urban and suburban areas in terms of percentage of the population. And there is a fundamental divide between someone who lives in suburbia and an urban area to how they view land. To someone who lives in those areas, it's where you put your house. It's maybe where a baseball field is. The land in your mind doesn't have any value. It's just a place to do something. You may live in a very nice house. You may be very happy where you are, but if somebody came and offered you a 25% better house on the other side of town, you'd seriously consider moving. When you bridge over to the other side of America, which only has probably right now maybe 6 to 8% of the population is living in rural areas, and then you figure you have to subtract down from that percentage of people who are actually landowners and decision makers, you're talking about a very small slice of America that not only lives on the land, but it is their operations, it's where their source of income comes from, and it's their source of identity. So for most people, when you talk to them on the suburban side, when you talk to them about their peace of mind, they're talking about their bank account, their savings account, their 401k. That's not the way rural people think. And the problem is bridging the gap between those two groups. More often than not, the people who are working for oil companies or renewable companies or infrastructure companies, they're going to live in an urban area or a suburban area. So all of a sudden, people with one mindset are having to rely on people with the complete other mindset to get the site for whatever project it is that they need. They're relying on those people for something that they need. And very, very often you need a translator between the two. I spend just as much time advocating on behalf of the landowner who I have no relationship with, who I have no economic incentive from whatsoever. I spend just as much time advocating for their needs to my client as I do advocating to the landowner on behalf of my client. That's the only way a good deal gets done.
I think it's incredibly like everything you're saying is incredibly impactful and the truth, and the little like bit I have in my career of the joy that I got of being able to being that intermediary between company and landowner, and just being able to talk kind of that same language with them and really try to get on their level and just be able to help them understand how we were on their same side and how we were looking to help advocate for their best interest. And that was some of the best years of my career for sure. And I really enjoyed, like, we went to West Virginia a lot, and we would set up meetings from 7 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon And we would end up being at this little field office until probably 8 or 9 o'clock at night because people would want to stay. They would want to continue to talk. And by the end of that, it was one of the most rewarding things of being able to see that connection and to have those people text you on your phone. And you knew that they really trusted you. And you knew that they felt that, the time was well spent is what I really got out of it. And it was just, I don't know, it was one of the best parts of my career for sure.
Yep. To have another human being trust you is wonderful, but also a frightening burden.
It is.
I mean, you know you're doing well, and I know I've picked the right people to work with me and for me on projects where they come to you and they say, hey, this person's asking, what should I do? What do I tell them? That's an exceptionally difficult conversation to have.
It is.
And the good thing is there are some kind of ways to get through that without violating the trust or the honesty, or I think just the basic principles because look, I mean, before we're landmen, before we're working for an industry, before anything else, we're humans. Okay. And so where you said they trusted us. Okay. One human being trusting another that's such a core, a bedrock place to be. And you really have to respect that. And you really have to treasure that and value that. And, just so people don't think I'm overly sappy and something like that, your success rate will go up markedly. Okay. Especially when you're in a rural area. People talk over fence posts. They talk over the back of pickup trucks. They go to the same church. Their kids play on the only baseball team in town. And so your reputation will precede you quickly. Okay. And they don't have to agree with you, but if they are willing to testify to their friends and their and you're never going to break that circle. You're the outsider. Okay. You're not fourth generation. You're not the family that they've known forever. So you have to behave this way. And people who don't behave this way wash out very, very quickly. And it's not just landmen, but I find more and more, especially on the renewable side of things, clients want to be very much a part of these discussions. And so quite frequently we have to actually have, to find a gentle term, a tutoring session where it's, here's what you want to say to these folks. Here's how you want to behave. Here's what you don't want to do. And the one advantage I have over clients is that I get to sit back and see how many different clients operate. So I get to pick and choose and see which ones have the greatest success rates, which ones I think operate the best, which ones have the lowest cost model. And it's amazing how often when you find a client that, and these can be large companies, but when you find a client that has a good internal culture where they treat their own people well, they treat the people they interact with well, it's amazing how they make the most headway. It's also amazing how they're self-policing. Every once in a while, a bad apple gets in, and usually within 9 months, they get washed out just because they don't fit.
Yeah, that makes sense. So your career, you've, and we haven't even touched on like you going to law school, you coming out, you worked at Florida for a while, in Florida as what, maritime law? Is that what it was? Okay.
Yes.
Maritime law. A very interesting ride to get to where you're at now, right? I mean, it's been a little bit of everything.
If I were in this all by myself, I'd probably be living up in New York as a maritime and admiralty attorney.
No kidding.
Absolutely I grew up on Long Island, absolutely love the sea. That's probably the direction I would have gone. However, the foremost absolutely essential words that we can all live by in life is happy wife, happy life. Okay. I am fortunate to be married to someone who is many multiples smarter than I am. And as we started our careers together, her career lent itself to eventually moving to Texas. She was an immunologist. She's a cancer researcher. So coming to Texas and MD Anderson and getting her start in that field made more sense. And it's amazing how when you move to Texas, they like to go to the beach. They like to fish. To them, a boat's probably about 20 feet long, and they're going to go a little further out to fish. But that whole maritime thing kind of goes down a little bit. And so when in Rome, or Houston, for lack of a better term, more accurately, you all of a sudden shift from maritime to land. And what's interesting is I found the same people. Because on the maritime side of things, when the sea is in your blood and that's just what you do, it's who you are. Okay. And so you talk to, whether they're lobster fishermen, tugboat operators, just people up and down the coast. Okay. That's their entire thing. While land in some ways is 180 degrees opposite of water, it's the same thing. People become emotionally and from an identification point of view tied to that. And so it actually wasn't as much of a shift for me as you would think, because yes, went to college, went to law school, started out as an attorney, argued one case in federal law and actually went in federal court and actually went very well. But this
one and done. You get to put that on your
done.
record, be like 100% success rate. Yeah.
Defeated.
You know what? I drove home that day. All the partners were telling me, man, you're on your way. Fantastic work. This was amazing. And I'm sitting here thinking that was a year of my life. All because basically the captain of a fishing boat fired a deckhand. And to a normal human being, the way he fired him, you'd understand you were fired. Everything of yours was thrown off the boat. He used every curse word you possibly could use. And I represented the boat owner. Every curse word you could possibly imagine, and then some you used. This guy was fired. The one thing he did not do was, John, I'm sorry, your employment with this boat is now terminated as of today's date. Here's a piece of paper saying that. Guy went out, got blind drunk, and then jumped off a pier into the water thinking it was water, but it was actually the tide was out, and so telescopically shattered his leg bones. And in the maritime side of things, there's a very, very, very generous medical scheme to help sailors and seamen if you qualify for it. You qualify for it if you're a crewman attached to a vessel. And so this entire lawsuit was he or was he not at that moment still a crewman attached to this vessel because the captain had not, you're fired. Okay. And I sat there thinking to myself, I just spent 12 months of my life. Whereas every human being with a shred of common sense knows, yeah, you were fired. You were done. That's why you were drinking. That's why you jumped off a pier. I enjoy what I do now much, much more. I still have all of the knowledge I had as an attorney. I still respect lawyers beyond belief. In today's litigious and regulatory heavy society, you can't move 10 feet. You can't get out of bed in the morning without talking to 5 different lawyers, and you're still going to do something that can get you sued. So this is not an anti-law thing, but for me, I like the negotiating room of being able to, this is what my end result is. How do I get there? What do I want to do? Whether it's trying to put up a wind turbine, whether it's trying to get a oil well drilled, whether it's trying to get a pipeline put in the ground, whatever it is, I want the ability to not just have to look in a book and be like, here are the rules. You will follow these rules and that's it. You have operating room.
That is really interesting. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine not knowing that you're not employed, but trying to take advantage of the system after you've shattered your legs does sound pretty. I mean, I can totally see where he's coming from, and you did win that case, right?
Yeah,
that's good. That's fantastic. What do you think about, like, you've shifted considerably, and now you've done this? Is it at Percheron? You've been there how many years now? 19?
19 going on 20.
And
this is the only company in this field I've ever worked on. Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's very, I mean, that shows where it's come. And over the past, how many years would you say that the focus has shifted into kind of the renewable and geothermal space? Like in the last 5, the last 10, and has it really gained some strong momentum here?
Are we talking at Percheron or are we talking at just the industry?
I'd say at Percheron first.
Okay. Percheron has been growing by leaps and bounds. And so it's not that the focus has shifted. It's that we're growing into new areas. And hopefully, and I know we're growing from a position of strength where we have mastered where we are. And now we're stepping out because we realize our skills are transferable. Myself and a partner and a friend started the renewables about 7 years ago now because we realized that our skills transferred almost entirely. Now, it turned out to be more complicated than that, but the wonderful thing about this company, and there are a lot of actually wonderful things about this company, but they give you the opportunity to try new things, and then they support you during that stage of infancy when you're an eggshell. And if you were trying to do this on your own, because look, I mean, everyone, when they come up with a new idea, the first thing, if you have any entrepreneurial spirit whatsoever, the first thing is, should I do this myself? Followed by, can I do this by myself? And I think, the ability to have that kind of nursery setting at Percheron was wonderful. And I think one of the reasons that we're as strong as we are now is because we had that. We've pushed into all the renewable tasks that people will normally do, whether it's wind, solar, battery storage. Geothermal is, no pun intended, exploding right now all over the country. It's amazing the meteoric rise that's happening right now. And with that conference that we were at in Las Vegas, Jerris, the number of conversations I had about either geothermal as a standalone or geothermal as a tie-in to other projects is astounding. And what's really cool is At first Percheron did one thing, and the successor companies to Percheron, because we're a result of a 2012 merger. One thing in one industry. It was land acquisition and titling in the oil and gas industry. We're now across pipelines and renewables and geothermal. I'm going to leave a lot of these out and people are going to be upset. Still doing, obviously, oil and gas. We're doing utility work. We're doing long transmission line runs for electric transmission lines. The interesting thing is we built this organically based on our skill sets. And then there's all the connectors between that, like the survey, the environmental, the drone flights, the topographic maps, everything. But what's interesting is for a while, it seemed like everything was dispersing. And you started to worry a little bit, are we becoming too siloed? Are we going to start having people butt heads because, well, I'm in this industry, I'm in this industry. Over the past year, you're starting to see everybody come back together. You're starting to see renewable companies that are asking, hey, what do we have to do to put up a natural gas power plant? We're starting to have oil and gas companies say, hey, you know what? We'd like to maybe not sell power back to the grid, but we'd like to run our operations, our on-site operations, in field operations with either turbines or solar panels. What does that look like? What do we have to do? And you're starting to see what we call stacked enterprises. And that benefits absolutely everybody. Because from the landowner point of view, assuming you own everything, you have many, many rights to that tract of land. And more often than not, when someone comes to your door, they probably just want to buy one of those. They want to buy it for the discount price of, here's one of your 5 rights that I want, okay? The problem is I may be encumbering those other 4. That's where a lot of the butting heads comes between landmen and landowners. Now, all of a sudden, you can approach as a group or a consortium where, you know what, we're going to use 4 out of the 5 of those rights. Now we can start giving you, the landowner, full value for what you own, with each of us only taking a percentage share of that cost. So from the landowner point of view, it's fantastic. From the corporate point of view, it's fantastic. From the negotiating point of view, it's fantastic. And from the community point of view, it's fantastic, because when you look at the entire American legal system as it relates to land, the whole purpose is to extract as much value and benefit from an acre of land as we can for the benefit of the community, whether that community be the local community, the state, the county, the federal, whatever it is. And so now all of a sudden you're having tracts of land that, rather than have one sole usage, may have 2, 3, or 4. Okay, this is one of those ideas where everybody wins, hopefully.
Percheron is a very well-known name. It's a huge entity. Might even use the word ominous in terms of where it is, in terms of everything. What are some things that people may have heard via rumor or might assume about Percheron that either aren't true, or what are some things that they ought to know about it that slips their mind?
I think what we battle often is every company starts off with 1 or 2 people and a pickup truck, working with 1 or 2 people in their pickup truck. And over time, if you make a lot of really good decisions and you behave correctly and you have a little bit of luck thrown in there, you start to grow. And all of a sudden you are very large, and you turn around one day and you're no longer 2 guys in a pickup truck, 3 people in a pickup truck. And where I think if there's something that we've been able to retain is, yes, we're over 1,000 people. We're nationwide. We have offices all over the United States. There are people who I meet when we go to meetings, and I've never seen them. Either I've only met them digitally, or I've just never seen them before, and we worked at the same company for years together. That's an entirely different feeling than when we first met. And we used to have, quarterly picnics or something like that, and everyone, their families would come together and you knew everybody. So that has changed. But what has continued forward, and I give a lot of credit to everybody at the company, especially the long-timers who've been there for a very long time, that same ability to work for one person on one project and know that there's maybe not, obviously not the whole company, but there's at least one person at Percheron who woke up this morning and all they care about is your project and whether or not you look good. And that's the toughest thing to do, because a lot of times when you start to get scale and size, you start to become either homogenized or you start to become impersonal. And we've always, always, always fought against that, because again, I don't care whether it's with landowners, whoever, the relationships matter. Okay. The relationships matter with clients too, because what you have to realize is, the same way that when you talk about your relationship with the landowner is, you're talking about their bit of economic security. You're talking about their life, their operations, their place. When you're talking to a client, you're talking how they pay the bills, how their kids are getting braces, how they're sending their kids to college, what keeps a roof over their head, their 401k. I mean, you're literally talking about their entire life. Okay. Yes, there are some times when it's probably easier to move around and have transfer between jobs, but quite frequently it's not. So you always have to approach a project with the realization that the bad ending for us is we lose a project, we lose some revenue. The bad ending for the client, theoretically, in a really bad way, is they lose their job, or size of the company, they can lose their company. Okay. And so I've had opportunities to leave Percheron. I've had offers to leave Percheron. I've thought sometimes you consider everything that comes in the door, but what keeps me here is we have a very solid core of people who wake up every day and realize what's important. And it's being able to keep your focus on those things, the intangibles. You know, we have a wall at Percheron where we actually write down these 7 intangibles. Our CEO calls them the non-negotiables. They are who we're going to be regardless of what's happening. And we're not talking about how much revenue we're going to make or how much we're going to keep costs down, or we're not talking about insurance aspects. We're talking about how do we treat people? How do we treat each other? In my position, quite frequently, I have to fix the problems when the problems inevitably arise. That's just part of my role. I cannot ever think of a time that I had to fix a problem where a client says you lied to us, or you were working against us, or you intentionally hurt us, or you whatever. I've never, ever, ever had to hit one of those problems. So for me anyway, that I think is the strength of Percheron, but also what we struggle against the most. And we're going to continue because look, in life, in anything, it's just general rule of thermodynamics. You're either growing or you're dying. You're either heading toward greater organization or you're descending into chaos. And for me anyway, it is not difficult. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's also not difficult to keep a 10-person company alive, especially if you have 9 other competent people around you. The bigger you get, the harder it is to keep all the lights on and everything running efficiently and smoothly. Eventually you get so big that you have your own gravitational attraction where it gets a little bit easier maybe. But when you're in that middle, it's very, very difficult. And so I've seen a lot of companies rise quickly and fall just as quickly or sometimes faster. So you ask a great question, Jerris. You ask what do we worry about? What's our what's our pain point? Our pain point is how do we continue to grow because we have to. Okay. We have to for our own sake, and we have to because it makes sense in an integrated service company to be able to always provide the next service. Clients like that. Okay. They like that. Hey, you did a great job here. Why do I have to walk away from you? This makes sense that you handled this as well. And so in order to do that, you have to grow. You have to bring new people in with new specialties, new background, new training, new points of view. So you constantly have to be growing the machine. But how do you continue to be able to provide that core level of success? And to be honest, even when I talked about clients a few minutes ago, where I said, when you're working with a good client because a bad one gets in and they wash them out in about 9 months without even having to fire them or terminate them. They just know it's time to leave. Percheron's very much the same way. When you look at a management level, I've been here 20 years. The 2 senior project managers I work with on a daily basis, I've worked with for 16 years now. The partner that I started renewables with, he's been here for 30 years. He and I have worked together for 20 years now. And that story goes on and on and on and on and on. And it shows that people want to stay. And they want to stay because we've continued to make it a place where you want to stay.
It sounds like you guys have a long history of treating people right, doing the right thing, and kind of having the finger on the pulse of the next big energy. I don't want to say transition, but the next energy lever that's going to be pulled. You've talked about the geothermal really blowing up like crazy. We always talk about on this show with all of our guests, the AI just craze that's been going on over the past couple of years and how that's transitioning. Where do you see, without giving away any special sauce of the company, but where do you see, like, in this new year, in 2026, what are some of the things that you guys might be focusing on, or what are some of the things that you believe you will be hiring for, that you will be putting focus on into the new year?
Good question. There's two separate questions there. I'm going to answer the first one first, then the second one. Where do I see things going? The world has always been a competitive place, and the world is a much smaller place than it used to be, which the world keeps finding new ways to become smaller somehow. America, and look, I don't want to be nationalistic because I realize that at some point I stop being American and I start being a human. But at the same time, I also realize that I'm very happy and fortunate to live where I do. And I think we've got a I like how we do things here, and I don't necessarily want things to change in a fashion that we don't dictate. And so it is over the course of human history, whether it's economic activity, political power, any type of power, energy goes with it. Okay. At least during the Industrial Revolution, you have to have the power to feed the growth. Okay. And so for me, the story of the next couple of years in America, in our industry, is we need absolutely every molecule of power that we can take out of the ground. We need every single electron that we can generate from the sun, the wind, anywhere we can get it. We need all of the above. I have a blog, and one of my blog posts, basically, because this was frustrating, when I see us get a little too far down the political road, because we love, especially in election years, to go butt heads on that. As an American, the answer should always be option D, all of the above. There was an entire blog post about that. And the reason this country is as successful as it has been over just a quarter millennia is it's always been all of the above with us. Give us all of it. Okay. I don't want to get to a point where we start competing against each other and there's a winner and a loser, because yes, it's great for the winner. And I'm not even crying with the losers. I'm just saying America's poorer for it. When you look at some other areas of the world where they're able to, in some cases, because it's more of a directed approach, shall we say, game plan out their energy needs, and they're able to say, this is what we're doing, we have to be able to compete against them. So long story short, next couple of years, I want to see us start to go back to putting in large solar and wind plays. I want to see us drilling oil and gas again as much as we can, not just for our use here, but also because it's an economic tool that can help Europe and hurt, theoretically, some of the people who we consider adversaries. So this has kind of been a long, convoluted way of saying, I hope that we're very busy over the next few years. Okay. Both as a company, as a country. So how do we plan to respond to that, react to that? We are going to continue to push out in as many directions as we can. We're making hires now that are subject matter experts in some of those areas. We are making sure that we find ways to stack enterprises if and when we can. We are trying to become liaisons and ambassadors between the different groups, both on a personal level, a corporate level, an industry level, anywhere that we can, because we realize we touch many of these different lily pads. And so again, trying to answer two questions at once, it's very difficult. The level of exponential growth that should be there over the next couple of years. When we look at our forward-looking studies as to what energy needs are going to be and where energy is going to come from over the next couple of years, it's everywhere. And the numbers are mind-boggling. Okay. Whether it's data center usage, whether it's data center usage for AI, whether it's onshoring smart warehouses and smart manufacturing plants, and the amount of just, unfortunately, they need less people, but they need a lot more energy. Okay. All of this comes down to the industry that we work in. When you look at, for a little while in the 90s, early 2000s, it seemed like the world was becoming a nicer, happier place. You look at the last 5 years, and sometimes it gets a little scary out there. All of a sudden, there are allies and adversaries. Being able to send LNG tankers full of natural gas to Germany, all of a sudden helps our national aims. To do that, we have to be pumping natural gas at a prodigious rate. We have to be building plants up and down the Gulf Coast in order to be able to liquefy that and export it. We have to be able to do everything. In order to be able to send natural gas elsewhere, the energy, the electricity has to come somewhere. Make it wind turbines and solar power plants. The largest solar power plant in the United States, single power plant, is about 750 megawatts. The largest single solar power plant in China is 15.2 gigawatts of generating capacity.
Wow.
So we have, for the first time really in probably 90 years, we're not necessarily the leader in everything. Now, we have by far the largest economy. We have the greatest resources. We have the ability to do and be whatever we want, but you're starting to see some other countries step up and lead us in certain things. And I want to make sure, as to whatever minuscule ability I personally have, I want to make sure that we're able to compete where we need to, help where we can, and profit along the way.
I think that's a very powerful message. One of the kind of wrapping this putting a bow on this whole thing, what I hear a lot from you, and I know one of the things that we didn't even really get into, was you've written a lot of articles, blog posts. You said articles for AAPL. One of them that really stood out and resonated to me was one that you did of cooperation is key for an energy transition. And the whole over this past hour that we've been able to talk is really being able to work together, finding those ways that we can cooperate, whether it be from an old guard to a new, of the oil and gas to renewable, but there is a place for all of it. And like you said, of being able to use every bit of energy that we can be able to get out of the ground, every electron, everything. It takes that cooperation, and it takes us all being able to work together. So I think that's a fantastic message.
If we do our jobs well in this country, 100 years from now, there will not be oil companies and renewable energy companies. There will be energy companies. At the end of the day, we're producing a product that allows people to grow economically,
Right.
culturally. So it's the same.
It's a good message.
Drew mentioned the written works, and that was one of the things that I thought would be interesting to have you on for. We are unfortunately out of time, I think, for this episode. But where can people find your written works and learn more about the work that you do?
Thank you. And thank you for that. I publish a blog called the Running with the Main blog. My website is wanderuntethered.com. There's something about just getting out there. You talked about that long drive you took, unless it was cold, I'm pretty sure the windows are probably down and you were just enjoying life. So there's a part of my soul that just wants to be out there wandering, but it's, tie it back to the beginning of this conversation, Boy Scouts. There's an expression there that you haven't truly learned something until you can see it, do it, and teach it. I think there's a responsibility as you grow in your field to try and give back, to raise the level of debate, to raise the level of just common knowledge. And I hope every once in a while someone picks up an article and maybe considers what's written in there. It's my way of giving back to the many, many, many people in this field who have helped me when they didn't have to. It's the type of thing where I very, very much enjoy doing it. It's an intellectual pursuit. And I love when I get comments or questions, and I love reaching out and talking to people and helping them if I can, not necessarily on the project that they're working on, but just who they are, what they're doing, where they're going. And I very much appreciate you bringing that up. It's been a wonderful passion project of mine. It's been something that really I've enjoyed.
It's fantastic. And so if people want to get a hold of you through the website, through LinkedIn, a couple different ways there.
Yep. LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn all the time. I have my various email addresses. I have contact information on wanderuntethered.com. I'm pretty easy to find, and it's I'm always happy for a conversation. It's always a rewarding experience. So, whether it's Vincent.Caruso at PercheronLLC.com, whether it's Running with the Main, the blog, it's just it's the fun part. It's the relationships. Every one of us got into this and succeeded in this business because not only do we have a capacity for it, but we have a drive and a need for it.
Exactly right. Well, I think what this boils down to is, we've had good conversation here for the last hour. This is when we didn't even get into most of the notes that I had, and Jerris, I know the notes that you had as well. So, obviously that means that there's going to be a part 2 someplace down the road.
I'd love it.
Oh, it'd be amazing.
There's some stress before a podcast, because you two know each other, you know what you're doing. And so I can usually 5 minutes in, you see my shoulders drop when I'm happy. Okay. You have been wonderful hosts. This has been a fantastic hour conversation. I really enjoyed myself. And so I would love to continue it someday. You're doing a very good thing, and I appreciate it. There's a reason why Google lists you at the top.
Oh my gosh. There's the soundbite for this episode, everybody.
Yes,
forget all the good cooperation is key stuff. We're going for Google SEO right here. But what I would say is it's absolutely a pleasure to have you on. Vin Caruso, this is someone that I hope that everyone listening out there, please look up, please find, please connect with online. I am so just absolutely over the moon of we continue to get such wonderful people on that deliver such strong messages. And it always relights kind of the fire that I have for this industry. And it relights the passion that I have for being able to help people and being able to know that the influence that we have, not just on this podcast, but just being able to meet people like yourself and know that we see them at different conferences and read blogs about them. And just, there's so many different great things that we can learn. We just have to be open to it. So I appreciate you. And thank you so much for being on today. Jerris, give us a final word. Kick this out of here in style.
I have no style, Drew. And this has been an awesome conversation. I don't know what else I can possibly add to it other than Thank you all for listening. From Drew Hopkins, Jerris Johnson, and of course, Ben Caruso. Whatever you're doing in life right now, I hope it's a wonderful holiday season for you and good things are coming your way. And with that, thank you guys very much and see you next time.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you all.